Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Stewart. I'm an SLP with the division here. And today, my topic, I'm going to be talking about functional communication. Some examples, what is functional communication, and how can we best teach or support the functional communication of our children and students, both at home and at school. First, I want to talk about the definition of language. So language encompasses the knowledge of word meaning, knowledge of how to put words together to form sentences, and the ability to manipulate the words to convey meaning as well as being able to produce speech. That definition talks a lot about meaning, and that will be tied into the definition of functional communication. Like, what does actually being able to communicate mean with another individual? When we think about language, many individuals with cognitive or learning challenges present with language deficits. Receptive language, we want to keep in mind a child's receptive language abilities. So what are they able to understand? How is their listening and following direction skills? We want to keep in mind of their expressive language. So communicating those thoughts and ideas, how are they able to express those thoughts and ideas? And there may be problems with receptive and expressive language. These are also signals or signs that in the future we may have problems with reading and writing and possibly communicating functionally with others. And that's what we're going to focus on today, the ability to communicate functionally, and how can we help our students and children develop and use those functional communication skills to the best of their ability. Things to consider when looking at language. Again, we talked about expressive language. How many words can the child use? Is their expressive language spoken, or are they using something like AAC or pictures to communicate? Is their vocabulary adequate to get their message across to the listener? And does the language they're using make sense? For receptive language and listening, is the child able to follow a conversation back and forth? Can a child follow 3 clear, concise directions if asked to do something? And when thinking of social language, can the child interact with peers and others and do this without difficulty? Or do they need some sort of adult support to play or talk with their peers? So we're getting to the functional language communication part. What do I mean by functional communication? Functional communication is behavior that's directed to another person who in turn provides related direct or social rewards. And that comes from a quote from Frosty and Bondi in 2002. So what is the real meaning of the message? Who are they talking to? And is it being reciprocated by someone else? Some typical functions of language. So when we think of functional language, here are some things that we look at. Is the child able to make suggestions? Can they give advice? Can they make apologies? Are they able to request something? Can they ask children to make an invitation to come play? Can they ask for help? Can they ask for directions? And can they make general conversation and comment back and forth? For some of our students with language difficulties, you may see these functions written on an IPP as a goal by the SLP, for example, might be targeting the use of these skills to help the child's language to be more functional at home or school. So for example, it might say, so-and-so will increase their ability to ask for help when needed rather than becoming frustrated or upset. So oftentimes you'll see functional language goals on an IPP. So my next slide is an example of a functional communication um, of a girl doing a functional communication. This clip comes from the new Disney movie called Out of My Mind. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend it. It's an awesome movie. I loved it. And it's about a 6th grader who has cerebral palsy, who is nonverbal and struggles with mobility issues and communicating with others. And I'll play the clip and then I'll talk about why this is an example of functional communication, what makes it so.
Hey, what's up?
Sorry, Melody, I really gotta get inside.
Your shoes are so cute.
What did it say?
I can help study for Whiz Kids.
Melody, you seem nice and all, but I don't think I need your help
Like I said, I really enjoyed this movie. And so, what makes this an example of functional communication? For one, she's directing her communication towards another person. She's not just pushing buttons or doing anything that's not directed to someone else. She's making suggestions. She also makes comments. So, she's trying to make general conversation. She comments on the girl's shoes. And her friend also provides direct communication back and social words back to her. She's smiling and eventually engages in the conversation and wants more information that she has to provide. So that's a good example of functional communication. Often another question that we usually get is, do you need speech to be able to have functional communication? And the answer,
Hey, what's up?
Sorry, Melody, I really gotta get inside.
sorry for that. Let's move to the next slide. The answer to that is no. Communication skills develop before speech. So young children as early as 6 months of age begin to understand gestures and will use them to communicate to caregivers. So they might point to something they want, like pointing to the bottle on the shelf if they want milk. And for an interaction to become considered functional, it just must occur between two people, the listener and the speaker. Some students will demonstrate functional communication skills without speech, like in the movie, an AAC user, and really young children with gestures. And some students will demonstrate speech without a lot of functional communication. So someone who talks a lot, but not really speaking it to anyone in particular or giving their message to anyone in particular. Or maybe they only speak to another individual when they're prompted to do so. So the key message in those two slides and the video is that for speech is not necessary, but to be functional communication skills, they have to be directed towards someone. And sometimes children that are on the autism spectrum, functional communication skills may be something that needs to be taught. Yeah. Here are some examples of functional communications in different environments. So it might look slightly different at school, what they want to do or request at home. So at home, some functional communication might look like requesting a favorite DVD to be played or saying sorry if they hit their brother. At school, it might be requesting a toy from a friend or telling a peer that they like their t-shirt. And in the community, functional communication skills would be like requesting food they wanted at McDonald's or asking for help to reach a can on the shelf at Sobeys, for example, if they're too short to reach it. Teaching functional communication skills, the language used will depend on the child's ability and understanding. Pronunciation, intonation, and expression will be important to use. We want to check the comprehension understanding of the language used, make the language and context clear, very clear, and support functional language instructions with visuals, repetition and practice, and generalize the students' real life setting and bridge new learning with previous learning. Functional language and social skills for older children. For those of you who might have older children in the home, making inferences is something of an example of functional language. So helping them reach a conclusion based on the evidence and reasoning, like what's right in front of them. Understanding multiple interpretations. So it's important for children to understand multiple perspectives and help them learn that different people have different experiences and possibly a different point of view than their own. And also different contexts and experiences can affect the understanding. For example, if I said the bat flew through the air, some students might think I'm talking about the bat, the animal, and others might think I'm talking about the bat in baseball. It all depends on the context and the environment that you're in and at the moment. And supporting the children in social problem solving through the use of visuals, reading stories, talking about various problems and situations that might present as difficult, and talk about some of the following. So you want to talk about what do you think they are thinking or feeling, a friend, for example, or a character in a story. How do you know they're feeling that way? And how could you help solve the problem? Also, for older children and younger children, we use scripts to support functional language or communication and social skills. So, a script is a set of instructions or expectations that guide how to navigate a social situation. Social scripts can be used to teach new skills, such as how to have a conversation, um, navigate new environments, and solve problems. With younger children, we use social stories, and we often use these to develop a child's ability to use their functional communication skills in the classroom, as well as outside the community. For example, practicing how to order their favorite meal at McDonald's, which might be important to them because they love to go, or what to say to people if they get lost, for example. So that's a good functional skill to have for a youngster. So, if we're thinking about teaching functional language to younger children or children who are experiencing language difficulties, powerful reinforcers are key in the beginning. And what do I mean by a reinforcer? A reinforcer is a consequence or consequences that strengthen the behavior that they follow. A reinforcer can be sociable or tangible. So, a social reinforcer, for example, would be a high five or a thumbs up or just saying you did a great job. And a tangible reinforcer would be something like candy or a toy, something that's hands on and usually something that's given to them. So, if you want to think of what are the reinforcers for your child's behavior right now, like what would they work for? Are you restricted in using certain types of reinforcers like food? And are there reinforcers you wish your child didn't want? Because sometimes children may pick something they want to work for that isn't the easiest to get your hands on or just use in the moment when you're outside in the community. Here are a few examples of powerful adult reinforcers. What do we work for as adults? We all have our own reinforcers. I don't drink coffee, but I will work for money, like many people will, or a vacation, for example. We all have our own ideal reinforcers, and so do your children. So if we look at the next slide here, here are some examples of powerful reinforcers for children. Certain TV shows, Bluey seems to be a big one these days, candy, and some children love to still work for stickers. But just keep in mind that what is reinforcing or what is used as a reinforcer is chosen by your child. It's not something that we can pick for them. It's something that they pick for themselves. I once had a student who could care less about candy or stickers, but they just would love to work for using the broom to sweep the classroom. And that's what he liked to work for. And that was fine. That's something that he chose for himself. How do we use these reinforcers? We like to teach something called Let's Make a Deal. And I don't know if any of the other presentations have talked about this, but Let's Make a Deal usually has 3 steps. And you show the student the reinforcer or have them choose one beforehand before they work. You ask the student to perform a task or wait until the student performs a behavior that you're hoping to target. And then you immediately give them the reinforcer to show them, like, good job, you did it, you got the right answer, quote unquote, and here's your reinforcer. Another example of direct consequences of functional language, our communication scenario that we might do as therapists in school, is a child notices that they have no paint during an art activity. So the teacher or therapist has hidden it or put it out of reach. So the child has to ask. The child asks the teacher or therapist for the paint, either using speech, gestures, or maybe their AAC device. And the child gets the paint and is able to finish the art activity with the rest of the class. So this is an example of functional communication and requesting. So something the child needs, and it is directed at an individual who is able to help and get them what they need, which is the paint, so they're able to finish the art activity. There are 5 critical expressive language skills that we want to think about when we want to help our children to do something more independently, with or without help or prompts. 1, can they request something? 2, can they ask for help? 3, can they request a break appropriately? 4, saying yes to something, and 5, saying no to something. There are 4 critical receptive language skills that we'd like to look at when a child comes into pre-K. Can your child do the following independently? respond to, or first respond to wait or denial of a desired reinforcer, appropriately transition between activities, follow directions, or follow a schedule or the group plan, what the class is doing. So I talked a little bit about prompting. What is prompting? Prompting increases the likelihood that a student will provide a desired response. It's also known as like hints or cues that you might give. And you probably are already doing this by modeling behavior, for example, providing example or a cue to use to wash hands in the bathroom, for example, before they leave. There are 6 different types of prompts you could use: a physical prompt, verbal prompt, visual, gestural, a model, and positional. So when thinking of a physical prompt, that usually means, gently placing your hand over theirs, for example, to help them zip their coat. A verbal prompt might be a teacher saying, check your schedule, to prompt the child to go over and look at the class schedule to see what's coming next. A visual prompt would be like showing a picture of the bathroom to signal the child that it's time to go to the bathroom. A gestural prompt might be pointing towards an elephant picture when asked the child what animal has a long trunk. If they're not able to answer, just giving a little gesture towards the correct response. Modeling means showing how to draw a circle before the child tries, or pretending I cannot open my snack and modeling that I need help, and how a child might go about getting help to open their snack. And positional, a prompt might be placing the correct answer, like a red crayon, closer to the child's hand than the other colors, to kind of give a hint of what the correct answer is. Things to consider if prompting. First, you have to need to know the current level of your student or your child's abilities, the type of prompting you think you might want to use. It's important to note that all prompting should be faded over time, because we want to build independence in all of these behaviors that we want to elicit. If prompts are faded too quickly, sometimes errors might occur, and verbal prompts can be the hardest to fade. So that's something to keep in mind when thinking about what type of prompting might I want to use to help my child, and which ones are easier to fade than others. And verbal prompts are definitely the hardest ones to fade. Here are some rules to prompting. Avoid unintentional prompts such as facial expressions, voice intonation, etc. We might have a tendency to, be looking or eye gazing at the right answer. And students are really smart and they pick up on that and they're able to pick the right answer. Just on the unintentional prompts you might be accidentally giving. We want to fade prompts gradually. As prompts make prompts less intrusive. So for example, if you have to start with a physical prompt, and to a gestural prompt, and maybe down to something else, make it less intrusive for the student. As prompts are faded, we remember to reinforce the more independent responses. If you're trying to elicit a behavior from your child and they're able to do it without you even prompting, you want to celebrate that. And you're like, yay, and like it's a big party because they were able to do that on their own. We often get the question too, as speech therapists, and I'm sure as teachers, should visual prompts ever be faded? So many of our students are described as visual thinkers or learners, and they are more successful when information is presented visually rather than verbally. Providing students with a visual prompt may reduce anxiety, and some visual prompts may never be eliminated but can be modified. So if they're younger and they start with a picture prompt as a schedule, then maybe that can be worked into a word schedule when they get older and they're able to read. When I think of myself, I use visual prompts every day. My schedule, for example, or calendar, it keeps me on track, it keeps me focused. And if I misplace that for a day, I definitely feel the anxiety and I just need to get it back. So I'm sure that is how some of our students or children feel if they're used to using some type of visual to help them reduce the cognitive load or help them figure out an answer, and all of a sudden it's taken away. I'm sure it does give a sense of anxiety, just like when I misplace my schedule or calendar. How do we ensure that your child doesn't become prompt dependent? Prompt dependency occurs when too many prompts are given at once or not faded quickly enough. When the desired skill is acquired with the prompts and they're able to do it pretty consistently with the prompt that you're giving, then it's time to start thinking about cutting back a little or trying to fade it to a more less intrusive prompt. Again, if prompts are removed too quickly, the student may make errors, but you can always return to the previous level of prompting, whatever you chose, and start over for a little while longer, and then try to fade it again until they're successful and they don't need the prompt anymore. Steps in fading prompts. So when you're thinking about the level, how much help is provided? So you may begin by using full physical prompts if you have to use hand over hand. And as the student becomes more successful, you might reduce the prompting to, for example, maybe guiding the forearm or just a slight touch of the elbow to get them to respond. Time between the instruction and prompt. So if you give an instruction or there's a behavior you want to elicit, immediate prompting the student to respond correctly. And then as he learns the task, you might wait a little while. You might give the instruction and you wait gradual longer periods to see if they're able to pick up the prompt on their own before you jump in. And space between the student and educator or parent. Begin teaching sitting right in front of the student and then gradually move behind or gradually increase the difference between you over time so they're not looking for you all the time to be there or be in their space. And fading prompts and picking prompts, this is something you could definitely ask your educators, your teachers, and your speech language pathologists, OTs, on what they think the best level prompting could be for your child. What do they use at school, and what's most successful at school? It's something that you probably can move into your home. So if anyone has watched or was at my last presentation, you'll know that one of my big keys is the interactive portion, because interaction is key in many different things for children. And so I have a short interaction thing for you guys today, just to kind of tie it all together. Also, there is a handout that summarizes this presentation of just the key things that might be useful for you at home. That's up on the website if you want to go take a look at that. The first question is true or false. Asking for help is an important functional communication skill. And the answer is true. Learning to ask for help is a crucial skill for children because it helps build trust in relationships. It allows them to overcome challenges more effectively and develops their communication skills. It enables them to express their needs, which can pave the way to greater academic success and provide personal resilience throughout their lives. We definitely want our children to be able to, any of our children, to be able to learn to ask for help. To further their independence and education. True or false? Physical prompting is when you show your child a picture of an object to help them understand the vocabulary being given. The answer is false. Physical prompting is when you physically move or touch a part of the child's body to cue them to touch something, pick something up, etc. True or false? You need speech in order to functionally communicate with another person. And of course, if I direct you back to watch the video, that is false. Just because a child has speech or talks a lot does not mean that they are functional communicators. And just because a child does not have speech, they may be very good functional communicators. True or false? A powerful reinforcer is key when teaching your child, let's make a deal. The answer is true. A powerful, sorry. I'll wait for the buzzer to stop. A powerful reinforcer will increase the likelihood that the desired behavior will happen again. True or false? And this might be a tricky one. This is an example of a reinforcer. And for those of you who might be just listening, it's a picture of a leaf. The answer is true. A reinforcer is anything that will work for the child or that the child will work for. Now, the hope is that eventually the direct consequence of their actions will become the reinforcer in time. So, for example, asking for a pencil to finish a drawing or putting on snow pants so they can go outside to play in the snow, the direct consequence of them asking for those activities is that they're able to do it. But this could be an example of a reinforcer. Again, like my little guy who really, really loved brooms, and that was an example of his reinforcer. So that is basically the end of my presentation, but I do have kind of like a home or parent activity, a challenge for you, if you will, to think about one functional communication skill or behavior that you would like your child to learn or that you would like to see increased in your home. So it could be something like requesting utensils at the dinner table. Would you like your child to be able to ask for help when needed? Make a list, or number 2, make a list of your child's most preferred reinforcer. What will your child work for? Is it a piece of candy, playing on the iPad for 5 minutes? Or what would they be happy with? Or would they be happy with the natural consequence to that behavior? So, for example, they ask you for the utensils, and getting the utensils is really reinforcing for them because they can now eat that delicious meal that you prepared. Think about what level of prompting you may have to provide in order to get your child to be successful at the behavior that you're looking for. I might have to do something physical. Is it verbal? Would a visual prompt be easier for my child? And try out Let's Make a Deal and see how your child's behavior may change over time. It's something that increases with repetition, and it's something that we do at school a lot with Let's Make a Deal. And yeah, I just challenge you to maybe think about these steps and pick one skill that maybe you would like to see increased in your child's, and look over your child's IPP, because there might be something in there too that talks about functional communication skills, and it'd be something you could talk to your teachers or the SLP more about, and how we go about maybe eliciting that behavior. And this is a time that I would ask for, are there any questions? But if you do have any questions, please reach out to your school or your teacher or your SLP if you have any questions about functional communication and how we could best support your child at home.